Introductions typically help. We had a quiet group last night too. Hi, Debayan.
Hello, hi.
Oh, all right, Dana, I guess you're in charge.
Let's do this. All right. So hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for attending this AMA with the team over at SiriusXM Pandora, one of our favorite teams to work with. And I'm particularly excited to have some Onramp alumni here to join us. And I know that they will have some pretty great answers to your questions since they have gone through the entire process that you're applying for just last year, not too long ago. So let's do a round of introductions and then I'll give my spiel about adding questions to the Q&A box again. So hi everyone, my name's Dana. I'm the head of talent over at Onramp. If you have applied to a previous opportunity or interviewed or sent an email to support, then you have interacted with me. I've already seen some familiar names, so I'm happy to see some of them back again. So what I'm going to be doing is moderating this AMA. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box and then I can present them to the panel. And so we're going to go through and just do a quick round of introductions. Let's go ahead and start with Allison. And then Allison, if you can just pass it off to the next person.
I shall. Hi, everybody. My name is Allison. I am the University Recruiting Senior Manager, and I oversee our apprentice program at SiriusXM. And I've been with our company for about 4 years now. And so I am a non-technical person, so I cannot answer any of your tech questions, but here more to kind of talk about the support, the process, what it's like to work here, the culture, all that good stuff. So really excited to have you here and hope you get really jazzed about our opportunities. I'm going to hand it over to Omar and then you can pass it off from there, Omar.
Hi, I'm Omar. I was one of the apprentices last year for the cohort, specifically for the Android QE automation team. So that is who I am with right now. What else should I say? I'm based in LA, but I'm working remotely, which is nice. I will pass it over to Lena.
Hi everyone, my name is Lena. Just like Omar, I was an apprentice last year and I work on the web team and I got converted to full-time only a couple months ago in November and I'm based in Oakland. Pass it on to Debayan.
Hey, hi, I'm Debayan and I lead our developer experience team and I'm one of the hiring managers. I've been with Pandora for around 5.5 years now and well, now SiriusXM. And yeah, and I'm also based out of Oakland.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. All right, I'm going to give the spiel one more time. I also put it in the chat box. If you have questions, please add them to the Q&A box. I do want to just sort of clarify that if you have an application specific question, like about an essay question or the assessment, you can send those to me at support@onramp.io. Because we have actual people who work at SiriusXM with us here today, great questions for them are about what it's like to work there, company culture, what it's like to be an apprentice, Lena and Omar's experience. Allison can answer questions about mentorship or any of those sorts of things. You can ask Debayan about things like how the teams are structured or the stacks they're working on. So just to give you a couple ideas, but if you have questions specifically about the application, feel free to just email them straight to us at Onramp and we'll be happy to answer them there. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. I think this is a great question to start with. This question's for Lena and Omar. I was wondering what it has been like transitioning from the apprenticeship into a full-time role and overall how your experience was going through the apprenticeship. So maybe just like an overview of what that process has been like for you. Lena, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think being an apprentice was very similar, kind of just like starting your job as a real software engineer, working on real projects and solving real problems with the rest of the team. I think the only thing that was different is I had more support and I felt really comfortable like asking questions if I get stuck on anything. It helped that like everyone knew that I was an apprentice. I had a really good introduction with the rest of the team, and there's a lot of people really willing to help me solve and tackle these problems.
So the transition was seamless, similar to what Lena has said. during the apprenticeship period, it was largely like as if you were already part of the team. So there was, I know like some experiences you work on some sort of side project that isn't necessarily going to be part of what the company or the team is working on, and then at the end of that they just like have a little demo of it. But for me, the experience with the team, probably when I joined them, I was able to just start working on what they were working on, tickets that were on their boards and such. So the transition was seamless since I was still doing similar work that I had already been doing during the apprenticeship period.
Great.
Can I
Thanks.
add to that?
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay, I would say that what's something that we really treat our apprentices, our interns, our part-time workers at Sirius is that we really want them to feel an integrated part of the work that we're doing. We never want to give kind of like work on the side or stuff that you're just like mimicking what we're actually doing. And so I think that that's what makes some of our experiences really unique, as Lena and Omar are kind of sharing. We want them to just feel like another member of the team. Sure, maybe their learning style or their knowledge base needs to grow, and that's totally expected. But in terms of like how we treat you, the responsibilities, the expectations that we hold our apprentices to, it's the same as anyone else at the team that would be joining at kind of that junior level. So I hope that, we think of that as a really big positive, and not as like, oh, hey, you're just another person here, but it's actually just wanting you to feel like you're an integrated part from day one and not something that's like separate or running in a different lane than what the rest of the company is doing.
Thanks so much. The next question, great to meet you all. And Ahmad wants to know more about the onboarding and the help that they get along the way in the learning process. So I'm assuming, Ahmad, you mean once they are on site at Sirius, there is the training month that's with Onramp prior to going on site. But once they get to Sirius, what does that mentorship and onboarding look like?
I can go first. There is kind of like similar how you get tickets when you complete tasks, for example, for bugs or for features, you get the same tickets to complete onboarding tasks. So there's like, this is the step of what you have to go through in order to like become familiar with the application. So one of the tickets could be like, you read this documentation, and then you could read like technical decisions, and then you start working with like very small bug fixes that usually like your manager finds kind of would help you kickstart like your familiarity with the application. And then you kind of go on from there and ramp up the work that you do.
So like Lena said, sorry, I'll let Divine go.
Sorry. Yeah, so it's actually no different than, if you were starting as a new, like as a senior engineer on the team, or as an intern or an apprentice. The onboarding experience is very, very similar for every member that joins a technical team. And, like Lena mentioned, we have an onboarding epic, as we call it, and that includes a lot of things. That also includes like meeting your coworkers as part of some of the initial activities, getting to know what they are working on, right, and introducing yourself to the rest of the team. And typically you will be assigned a technical mentor, and the technical mentor and you are typically expected to at least meet once on a weekly cadence. And also, like, I'd highly encourage all of you to, like, interact with the team, sit for pair programming sessions, participate in all the sprint planning activities, and just, getting to know what each of your teammates are working on. That itself is a pretty good learning experience.
For me, after doing the onboarding tickets and such, my team also gave a bit of allotted time. I think it was about 2 weeks, where we can just go through the wiki pages that they had, so that we can be more aware of the tools and the software that was needed, and to make sure that we were already set up. And if we were ever stuck, as in like we were going through the wiki but still couldn't get it set up, then of course they would quickly set up sessions with us and just try to help us walk us through to see if there's anything that we missed to help set up whatever the tools we needed. So it was an easy onboarding experience, and they did give us enough time, probably yeah, I felt like I was definitely ready earlier, but they still gave us the 2 weeks so we can just get more acclimated.
Also, I found that Slack that we used sometimes, like if it ran into some errors setting up my environment, I would usually search and find that someone else who's also been working on the team has ran into similar errors. And if not, you can ask a question and somebody will usually answer and help you out along the way.
Great, thanks so much. And there's some awesome questions coming in. For those of you that joined a little late, put any questions you have in the Q&A box and I will share them with the panelists. So the next part of that same question is probably for you, Allison. I think there's a little bit of confusion around Sirius's policy on remote work, on site, the flex policy. So I'm wondering if you could just speak to that a little bit to clear that up.
Yeah, sure. So we are, like with most companies, trying to navigate how every day the pandemic is changing. I think as a company, we would love to see people back in the office as soon as possible, but we've really thought about the safety and priority of our employees. We are a 24/7 operation out of some of our offices, and so maintaining the health and safety to keep the radio alive is definitely important. So primarily speaking, most of our employees are remote. Except for essential employees at this time. We are hoping in the coming months to be going back to more of a hybrid ad hoc type work experience, which would mean that employees are designated different classifications, and certain employees that are ad hoc means that they could go in 1 time a week or 2 times a week. They might be called in to go, every other week, depending on their team and the projects and the need of the business. But we are looking to have employees that are, while the posting, I think this is getting at, is kind of right now for New York and for Oakland, is because we do want to have the offices accessible to as many employees as possible, even on an ad hoc basis. And so that's kind of, I think, the direction we're trying to move. Obviously, we're looking at what could be possible should the pandemic continue and all of that. But for right now, most employees are remote, though we are hoping to move into this ad hoc hybrid world in the coming months, should it be safe for everyone.
Thanks for clearing that up. I also just want to answer a quick application question, because I think probably more than one person has this. There are some people who are asking if Java needs to be their primary language, especially if their primary language is JavaScript. We have had actually several successful apprentices who are now full-time software engineers at Sirius actually teach themselves a new stack as part of our application process. So Omar's cohort mate Brittany did that. Momo back in the iOS cohort did that. So if Java isn't your first language, that's okay. We provide some resources. You can upskill and teach yourself. And there are success stories currently working at Sirius to prove that it can and has been done. So let's see here. Hannah has a great question. What was it like in the first week of the apprenticeship? It sounds like maybe you were doing some of that like wiki reading for the first 2 weeks. So maybe we should talk about the first week when you were actually more involved with the team and getting your hands in the code.
I think one of the first tickets that I worked on was creating a teeny tiny badge for the songs, and then it went live, and that was just like really exciting because I could like show it to my friends and be like, I worked on that. Yeah, and for this, I asked, it was me and another intern that was actually joining the team for the summer internship. So we kind of set up a session and discussed like different parts of the application you need to be familiar with in order to like create this kind of work. So it was just like talking to other engineers and them knowing that you're new and they were willing to help you set up and kind of like start going from there.
Yeah, the first week was I was given a ticket because ever since then now I just pick up my own tickets. But for that first week, I was given a ticket by my mentor so that I can get started working on what they're working on and get more familiar and acclimated with what they do and the process and such. So I did take part in the sprint planning, but I did not give updates like everyone else did because of course I was joining mid-sprint. And so, yeah, it was a simple start. Of course, now that I am full-time, I don't just have one ticket. I do many tickets. But yeah, for that first week, they gave me one ticket and said, work on this. Don't worry about like how fast you need to do it, because you don't have to give updates on the sprint reviews and such. So they did ease me into it.
All right, next question is probably for Brian. Which version of Java are you using, and what is the tech stack that Pandora/Sirius uses?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it probably depends on the team and the project that you're, you will be joining, but we are using JDK 11. Some services might be using JDK 10 or 9, but for the most part, we are moving towards JDK 11. A lot of teams are also using Spring Boot, especially on the backend side. Some teams are moving into Go. And we are also kind of like contemplating moving into Scala as well. So there's quite a few languages in the mix, right? So there's also TypeScript, there's JavaScript, there's a lot of Kotlin that's going on right now. And if you are joining the iOS team, then there's Swift. So that's kind of what our tech stack looks like.
I thought this was, let's see, where was this one? Oh yeah, this is a good question. If someone gets converted from apprentice to full-time, is the apprentice required to re-interview? And if so, what does that process look like?
No, there's not a formal interview process. Omar and Lena did not. We actually have a process in place that at the end of or as we get to the end, managers submit feedback as well as other stakeholders submit feedback to the head of the department. That's reviewed, and if it's approved, then the conversion is offered. It's not another interview process. Typically, the reason for that is because the apprentice has just converted straight on to the team that they were already working on. So that's been the most natural transition for apprentices and interns in most cases with us. So we don't really feel the need to put you through interviewing with us again. It's more, I guess you could think of the 6 months that you're working as your interview and how you're preparing yourself, putting yourself forward. We are watching that, but all of that is factoring into our ability to make an offer or not.
Yeah.
Question for the former apprentices. What was your background before joining Pandora?
I have a very kind of diverse background. I had lots of jobs. I worked for nonprofits, for environmental nonprofit, administrative assistant. I worked in food service, and also my most recent has been a Russian translator. I'm a native Russian speaker.
Prior to this, I was a digital and print marketing lead. I also did a role as a marketing platforms administrator, as well as a marketing technology liaison. But I was primarily the digital and print marketing lead.
So I just want to put it out there to answer Isaac's question, which is, can you apply if you're currently in a non-technical job, but have some past experience and are trying to re-enter the industry? Yes, our apprentices are largely career changers who are doing just that. They have backgrounds from as varied as we had someone who had a PhD in pharmacy. We've had stay-at-home moms. We've had people who were research scientists in some biomedical field. So varied backgrounds, and anybody is welcome to apply regardless of what you're doing right now. Next question, I think again for Tobian, what kind of skills and experiences is this apprenticeship looking for? And maybe Allison, you can speak to this too.
Yeah, I think primarily we are looking for, we look at attitude, right? Because we want to make sure that you have a learning attitude, you're eager to, you don't shy away from asking questions. You have a hunger to learn, passion for technology, for solving problems. That's kind of what we're looking for. And of course, like, the technical skills is going to, it's going to evolve over time, right? Like when I started in this industry like 10 years back, and, speaking for myself, right? Like I didn't go through the apprenticeship program, but, like I had a very diverse background, but, like I started with robotics, then I moved to marketing and I worked in sales, marketing before moving back into engineering, right? And then once I moved back into engineering, I started like evolving with, in my career. And, today I am a senior manager. So sure, all of you can, kind of like get to that place. But it's a learning curve, and don't be shy of taking the opportunity to ask questions, however stupid it may seem, because no questions are ever, silly questions. And, just make sure that you go in there with the right attitude, and you should be fine.
I second everything Debayan said, and I just want to call out, he really didn't mention that much technical aspect. I think, we really pride ourselves on the fact that our, we believe people can learn and you can grow, and you might get the question wrong in the interview, and that doesn't mean that you aren't going to have that inquisitive nature, the ability to work collaboratively on a team, to learn. So remember those types of things that you bring with you, and not like get so overwhelmed that you said the wrong thing, or you had the wrong thought process, or got to the wrong answer in the end. That's not our focus.
I want to add a bit more onto what Debayan had said about asking questions and such, and to not be afraid. And really with SiriusXM, it's easy to ask questions because everyone is almost like pretty much everyone that I had ever spoken with during this time has been helpful. So sometimes if I had questions, I would usually first go to either the lead on my team or my mentor. And sometimes they would say, oh, that's actually a better question for, and then they would like tell me a Slack channel that maybe that would be better for, like, oh, this team or that team, or people working on this feature. And so then I would just go to those channels and post my question there. And then I would get help from people from other teams. So it's really not just your team or your mentor that you can only ask questions or that will help you. It's just anyone to just throw the question out there, say, oh, hey, I'm having some problems. And then someone who knows about that problem will usually comment on your thread, or sometimes they'll even schedule a Zoom session so that they can walk you through it or speak with you about what could be going on. And then, so yeah, everyone's just helpful, and definitely don't have to be afraid.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add to that is like, a lot of answers often come from the community itself, right? So make sure that you engage in the community outside of the company as well. So in the specific, the tool stack that you're working in, and there's a community for iOS engineers, there's a community for Java engineers, so make sure that you use all those resources as well, because there's a lot of opportunity to learn, and also like an opportunity for you to bring in new ideas to the table as well. So I would highly encourage that.
Yeah, I would like to just add, like, some folks could be afraid about posting their questions publicly, but in reality, like, it helps everyone. Like, you might have this question, someone else might have this question, like 3 days later, someone else will have this question again. So it's better to just ask, and then this will benefit everyone that you're working with.
Thank you all for those answers. I'm going to ask the flip side of that question, which is, what are some common challenges an apprentice can face while developing with the team? It sounds like one might be being a little afraid to ask questions, and that just asking them is really helpful. What are some other common challenges that might come up?
I think that working remotely definitely can have some of its challenges as well as benefits. I would say one of the challenges is you need to kind of be proactive about your work. Like, you have to go that extra step if you do need help, and if you are seeking help. Like, if you message someone and for some reason they like didn't reply, kind of like not waiting for like 3 days until they reply would be a good tip. You can post in a public channel, or you can reach out to someone else who is also like familiar with what you're working on. That would be my tip.
I feel like a common challenge that I had more toward the beginning were when maybe something, since I work on Android side, something on the Android Studio for me wasn't working, and so it wasn't necessarily software wise, but it was something with the tool. So I had maybe something not set up correctly. And so that was a common issue with me that just kept coming up. I was like, oh, I have something else that's broken. And sometimes I would try to fix the problem myself, try to identify it for a while before finally thinking, okay, maybe I should ask the lead or the mentor. And so definitely I would say have a good balance between trying to figure it out yourself before asking the question, because you don't want to ask right away, like, oh, I have a problem, ask right away. So but you should have a balance of like, okay, I've spent a good amount of time on this. This is blocking me from doing more work. Maybe now's the time to ask for help.
Yeah, I can also add another thing I thought of is probably none of you have worked on production application before, and there's just a lot of files and a lot of things going on, and there's lots of libraries and technologies involved. So it was really hard to kind of grasp around all this information at once. So what I suggest is read the documentation about the project, and then work on the project, and then maybe like a week later come back and read again, and you might discover some things that you missed before that you're going to understand now. And this is kind of how your knowledge of the code base is going to develop over time.
Great, thank you. This is a great question. I'd love to hear probably all of you speak a little bit about the company culture. And then Allison, for you, there is a question about benefits. Obviously, a full-time employee has different benefits than an apprentice. So maybe you can speak to the difference between those. And then maybe if each of you can speak a little bit about your experience of the culture at Sirius.
I can go first. Okay. And Dana, you can help me fill this in about benefits, because I believe Onramp offers certain benefits that we don't offer, partially during this apprenticeship. You work for Onramp. You're working on our projects while you're there, but you are technically an employee of Onramp, and you do offer the option to opt into healthcare benefits. Is that correct?
There's healthcare and there's sick time. Yes.
And sick time, right? Yep, has healthcare and sick time. Otherwise, kind of the benefits overall, you're considered kind of an hourly employee, so we are expecting people to work the 40 hours a week. Obviously, if things come up, we can work with someone on that. You get subscription services to our platforms while you're here, so get connected. When you convert to full-time, though, we have a much more comprehensive benefit package for our full-time employees. So those are things from healthcare, vision, medical, and dental benefits, 401k, matching programs. We have, you get subscriptions to all of our platforms when you're full-time as well. We have like pet insurance and identity theft insurance and all these other things you can opt into. We do have paid time off for our employees. And then another benefit that we have for our full-time employees is 5 actually volunteer paid time off days, in addition to your regular PTO, your personal days, the company holidays that we get. We also give all of our employees 5 days during the year to volunteer. So that's, I think, the majority of the highlight of benefits that you would get as a full-time employee. But as Dana mentioned, healthcare and sick time is a part of the, and in an hourly rate is a part of the wage from Onramp. Okay, culture. Who wants to pick that up, the culture of our organization?
I think the culture is really awesome. I really love how a lot of the people at the company are very kind of like musical oriented. A lot of people are artists, a lot of people are performance, play different instruments. And there was actually recently an activity where folks got to record their own concerts and kind of make music videos of them. And that was kind of like community building, and you got to know people that you work with from a different side. Everybody's really nice and helpful. And I've gone to several kind of outdoors events with my teammates and got to know them. So Mar can share the experience too.
Yeah, the culture is definitely great here. They are extremely helpful. I had brought it up with my manager during one of our one-on-ones while I was doing my apprenticeship, saying how it was easy just to either post a question on the channels or just directly message someone specifically, because like someone referred me to them, and then just like they've never spoken to me before, but I just like ask a question and we just start talking back and forth. And it's very easy just to do so with anyone that I've experienced. It was either within my QE team or within the dev team, both on Android, iOS side, also web. I've collaborated with people on the tools team. So it's easy to collaborate or just get help from other people. And when I brought that up with my manager, she said that is actually something that was part of the culture. I think she said that it was, the message was I got your back, was what they officially tried to adhere by. So it's definitely, when I told her, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense, because yeah, everyone I've ever spoken with was just easygoing and helpful. And so it's definitely great culture. And then we've had like some team events with my QE team. Like we had a Halloween party where my manager sent each of us in the team a box which came with like candy and then some pumpkins, and we were having a pumpkin decorating contest. I was actually the judge of that. She randomly chose someone to be the judge by placing an item in the box, and it turned out it was in my box, so I was the judge. So that was a great time. Like Lena said, there was the music concert that they had. I think it was like 2 or 3 hours long. Everyone there, like they had some ridiculous music videos, like they had some good production value going on there. But yeah, it's definitely a great place. I've enjoyed it so far. I'm pretty sure I'll keep enjoying it.
Hey, yeah, so I'd like to add a few more things to what like Omar and Lena have already mentioned. And like I've been here longer, so I've actually seen a lot of stuff going on when we were actually in office and not completely remote. And we kind of had to tweak things around, but like the culture at Pandora SiriusXM is like fantastic. So like Lena alluded to earlier, a lot of the engineers are actually musicians, and really, really talented musicians. And you can actually even hear their singles or on Pandora, right? So it's actually pretty great. And we have concerts. We also bring in outside artists to perform. So, and that was really like something that we used to look forward to when we were in office. So we used to have like bands come in, and even like artists come in. We actually had a block party in Oakland just I think the year before the pandemic, and we actually cordoned off like 3 blocks around our office, and we set up a stage and everything, and you had like artists from all over come and perform. So it was super, super exciting. Aside from that, we also have a bunch of perks, which is like like clubs, and there's pretty much a club for anything, right? And you can be a member of those clubs, and each of those clubs get like a quarterly stipend to spend their money in whatever way they want as part of the club's mission. So that is also like it's super engaging, and it also helps form relationships outside of work. And we are also pretty, focused on DNI, and we have a bunch of communities as well within SiriusXM Pandora. Like, there's Mixtape, there's Women in Tech. There's a lot of cultural activities that go on as well. So we do celebrate, like different cultures, different traditions. So yeah, it's a really good culture, and like, I think Omar mentioned, like I got you is one of the philosophies that we abide by. So pretty much everyone is extremely helpful, extremely approachable. So don't feel shy at all to, just hit someone up, right? So.
Great. 2 questions that I guess probably one's for Allison and one's for Brian. Kind of if somebody does the apprenticeship in one city, is it possible to like move to another city? Like, are you stuck in one location upon conversion? And then the other question is about teams. So if you do your apprenticeship in Java, but maybe in the future you want to work on iOS, how much room is there for that kind of change within the company?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that quickly. Absolutely, there's people who move places around the country. We are pretty present in a lot of different locations. So it could be an opportunity. Again, I think as a company, we're still trying to evaluate what this world of work looks like. So for right now, I know we're getting a little technically hung up on location, but I want you to know that like we are very concerned with like finding the right people and trying to make it work. That being said, internally, and I don't know if Debayan can speak to any examples, but I definitely know people who have worked on one team and then after a couple of years mastering that have moved on to a different team, maybe even a different programming language, going from the website to the mobile side or the back end to the web or whatever. So it's absolutely something I know we've seen. I don't know, Debayan, if you have any examples or things.
Yeah, I have like 3 people on my team that are internal transfers. So
there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very fluid. Typically, like, I don't think like we would encourage you to kind of like start off, your apprenticeship program in Java and then, immediately like try to switch to iOS. First, I think it's very important to kind of like build a solid foundation in any tech stack that you're working. And once you build a solid foundation, it becomes pretty easy to kind of like do the internal switch. However, when you are doing an internal switch or internal transfer, you have to go through an entire interview process. So people are able to do it. And, like I said, like there are 3 folks on my team who have successfully been able to change their careers. And there's also been like backend engineers moving to the mobile teams as well, or mobile engineers moving to backend. So that happens a lot. So yeah. And as far as like remote work is concerned, all of our teams are pretty distributed at this time. So we have, like employees in Oakland and Dallas, Atlanta, Boulder, New York, New Jersey, a bunch of other cities. So we are, pretty flexible on location. So yeah, hope that helps answer your question.
That being said, for the duration of the apprenticeship, you would need to be located in either New York or California, just to clarify. But once you convert, it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility with that. Great question here about work-life balance. How is it? You have to understand a lot of these people are coming from boot camps where there's not a lot of that balance. So what's it like?
Actually amazing. And I think one of the things that we forgot to mention when we were talking about the perks of working at SiriusXM is that we now have permanent summer Fridays, which means half-day Fridays, at least for the foreseeable future. And we've been kind of like having that since the onset of the pandemic, which gives everyone like 2.5-day weekends. So it's awesome. And I think in general, like the focus is, there is a lot of flexibility within the teams. We kind of like go with an ownership driven model. So you are in charge of your project, what you have to deliver. There are no fixed times that you have to, show up at 8 in the morning or at 9 in the morning, and you have to work 9 to 5, especially, with a lot of folks working from home. People have different challenges, and we want to make sure we provide as much flexibility as we can. So there are lots of folks who have like custom timing. So they work a few hours in the morning, then they have to take care of kids, and then they again like resume at night. So there is a lot of flexibility from that perspective. So yeah, like I said, it's ownership driven model. You kind of like own a project, you know that you have to deliver this, whatever you're working on within this time frame. How you do it is totally up to you. So
anyone else want to speak to work-life balance?
So far, I've just been consistently working, 8 hours a day. I've taken part in a couple of those summer Fridays because I still am trying to, pick up as much as I'd like during this time. And so I try not to like during those Fridays, since most people like I see Slack is like almost completely just quiet. Whereas other days you get all these notifications and such, but on Fridays it's usually like minimal. So during those times, I usually, if I'm not currently working on a ticket that needs to be worked on for my team, I usually try to work on something that I think will take a lot of time for myself, but I don't really feel too bad about spending time on working on that task because I'm like, well, hey, it's like this Friday is more like I'll get to work on it. It's like a free day to work on this one thing, even if it'll take me a while. Whereas the other days I'd be like, I have to be more aware that, okay, this would take too much time. So we'll just like either push it off or not pick it up at this time. So that's what I usually use my Fridays for. But yeah, I haven't worked many hours in a day. So I definitely, once I log in, I usually wake up like 10 minutes beforehand and then log in at my usual time and log off at my usual time. So work-life balance is definitely balanced out.
I can add to that. I think as long as you communicate that you need to be away from computer, or like there's an emergency that came up, or like you need to do something, especially since so many people are at home and like some have children or pets. Yeah, as long as you communicate that you'll be gone for such and such amount of time and that you'll be back like in an hour. Usually managers and teammates are pretty flexible, and yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes see statuses of someone that just says chores and it's like 30 minutes. I was like, okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you. This is a great question. Allison mentioned that towards the end of the apprenticeship, the managers will submit feedback to get approval for hiring. Is there any other feedback offered before the end, possibly monthly, to make sure the apprentices are on track from the beginning? How do apprentices know they're on the right track, or what they get to work on to improve and perform up to par?
Yeah, I'll let Debayan speak about his review process with his direct reports, but we absolutely think it's important to be giving feedback in time on a consistent basis. Our whole philosophy is not that your review should come around once a year and be surprised by what it says. We don't want that. We actually have a process in the summer that we do with our employees called Playback and Discovery, which is an employee-led kind of like check-in midway point of the year. And so absolutely there is consistent feedback given. Like Debayan said, you would meet with a mentor probably a couple times a week, possibly, and with a manager, hopefully 1 to 2 times a week, or excuse me, once a week, every other week, depending on the schedules. But you should absolutely have a good idea of how you're progressing throughout the experience. But I don't know if you want to add to that, Debayan.
Yeah, I think like Allison's covered it for the most part. Like most managers that I know have a weekly cadence, and sometimes it's bi-weekly depending on the schedule. But you would be, like interacting with your manager. Make sure that you ask for feedback in your one-on-one meetings with your manager, or talk about career growth or what you want to do. If that's your time to ask questions. And also like when you're meeting with your technical mentor that you're working with on the project. So make sure to ask for feedback and, understand where you need to improve. So, and that process should be happening continuously and, not like once a year, or it shouldn't come to you as a surprise. So.
The way I just want to say, I don't know how like other teams would do it or have done it, but on my team, they had set up a bi-weekly sort of tech talk is what they called it, with me and my fellow apprentice, where we would go over, it would be kind of like our sprint review, where we would go over the tickets that we worked on and such, and then they would give feedback as like, oh, like good implementation there, or like, oh, maybe this way for the like this next time and such. Of course, they always give reviews during the PR reviews, but during our tech talks, it was more specifically about me and my fellow apprentice, and so we had those times every other week. And of course, we do meet up with our manager for our one-on-ones every other week. You have meetings for one-on-ones with Dana, and also I had them with Allison every other week. So there's definitely a lot of checkups to make sure that you feel like you are on the right track. If you have any questions, you bring them up those times. So there's definitely a lot of times where you can bring up any concerns that you have, such as how you're progressing or any other problems. So it's definitely during my time, I definitely did get a lot of feedback during the apprenticeship. So it was easy to know where I was on the track or how I was performing.
I can add about feedback. Don't forget to ask for feedback directly, especially if you like have a one-on-one with your manager. If you have specific questions, just ask for feedback. And like my technical feedback, how do I perform? How do team members see me? And usually the manager will tell you if there's something that you need to work on or if you're doing great. So that's kind of a way I communicate it with my manager.
That's definitely something that I did bring up with my manager as well, because my team was like, they give feedback either on Slack or during the tech talks, where they would consistently be like, oh, great job, like all this, like doing a great job here, good job implementation. Sometimes when I would put a pull request in for a review, I would get a direct message from the lead, is like, oh, hey, I was going through your review, it's like really great work. And so I felt like I was getting positive feedback. So once I did bring it up with my manager, I was like, is there any negative feedback? I'm not sure if you guys are just holding back on the negative feedback or if it is only positive. And she's like, oh no, if there's a problem, we'll tell you. She's like, so definitely, like, I haven't heard anything bad. She's like, I have heard nothing but good. So it's not just them being nice. Like, this is the actual feedback. And I was like, okay, just wanted to make sure that you guys weren't trying to hold anything negative from me.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so let's see here. I think this is a great question. What does internal growth look like after completing the program? So how can one expect to grow within the company after becoming a full-time employee?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So we have a pretty well flushed out career framework for, like engineering ladder, for, even like quality, science, for all the different programs that we have, right? And for each of those levels, it's pretty well articulated, like what are the things that we are looking for. So you can use that, the career framework as kind of like the benchmark, and then compare your performance against that. So, like if you're at level 1, then what do you need to get to level 2? Kind of like talk to your manager about it, like where the gaps are and what you need to improve, and how you can get there.
Great. I think this is a great question. Bootcamp graduates are typically less strong in Java. Most of them are coming from JavaScript programs. So can you talk about what is an ideal candidate in terms of technical skill, especially since a lot of these candidates will be learning Java as part of the application process?
I don't know, Devine, do you have any thoughts in that about technical level of Java understanding or making that
it would be
transition?
best if like Omar or Elena can help answer that question, since they've kind of like come from that background.
Yeah, I'm a bootcamp graduate. I have never studied Java per se, but a lot of the guides that I read were written in Java, for example, for interview prep. And I was able to understand a lot of functions and a lot of functionality. And I think if you just go down to the root of it, like programming is just like problem solving, and syntax kind of changes from language to language. As long as you understand like main concepts of programming and you're skilled at reading documentation and asking good questions. Yeah, I think what people at Pandora and Onramp want to see is eagerness to learn and to succeed and progress over time.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the key things, like when you're transitioning into technology, and you'll know as you spend time, is like everything starts getting redundant 2 to 3 years down the road, right? So it keeps evolving. So every 2 to 3 years later, it's kind of like a clean refresh, right? So you're always constantly, even for someone with 20 years of experience, they're constantly learning. You have to like, either you're pivoting to a different language altogether, or some technology gets deprecated and is replaced by the latest technology. So it's a continuous process of learning, and that's why I stressed on earlier, like making sure that your fundamentals are good, right? Making sure whatever language that you learn, whether it's JavaScript, whether it's Java, Python, or Go, make sure that your fundamentals and programming concepts are clear, and like have the problem solving attitude. Like you're given a problem, understand how you're going to solve the problem, and then you can just look up the syntax, right? There's plenty of documentation for all popular languages, so just follow the documentation, but be clear in your mind how you want to implement the solution. As long as you are good at that, language should not be a barrier.
Beautifully put, both of you. Thank you. Kind of piggybacking on that, does Sirius have a policy for further education? So if somebody wanted to learn, once they've already been hired, is there any sort of like continuing ed stipend or benefits in place?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do not have any education benefit, but we do have, like you can work with your managers on the team, and typically you are provided some sort of like a reimbursement policy for education courses that you want to take or for certifications that you want to do. So there is absolutely scope for that. And, most managers would encourage you to learn and pick up new technologies. So a lot of, our folks, they subscribe to, like Coursera. There is, or like Udemy and, Linux Academy. So there is a lot of opportunities for learning, and but there is no like stipend per se.
Right. We don't like in tuition reimburse for an undergrad or master's degree, I think is what Devayan's saying, but there are pools of money and ways to work with your manager to get reimbursement for things that are, again, more self-taught or guided, not like a formal master's undergrad type degree, just to clarify. And we do have a, that is a benefit that comes up constantly that we always, people bring up. Right now it's not a thing, but benefits change and evolve that we offer over time. And if, who knows, could be down the road, never know. But there's definitely ways to upskill yourself here, for sure, like Brian said.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. I think we have time for just maybe like 2 or 3 more questions. I know the answer to this one, but I'd love to hear y'all speak about it. Do you have internal or company-wide hackathons?
Absolutely. And I think like every year, like most of our engineers, they look forward to it. It's a very good opportunity to, be creative. And it's also not like restricted to only like improving the Pandora or SiriusXM products, but it could be something like pretty rad and pretty wild, right? So I don't know, like Allison, do you have like some of the hack videos from the past where there are some really, really nice ones? We can actually send you a couple later so you can kind of like look at our hackathon presentations, but it's a pretty big event, and people look forward to it, and you can don any hat in the hackathons, right? Look, if you want to be a PM, you can be a PM for a team as long as you're able to sell your idea to a team. Or it's also an opportunity for you to collaborate with other engineers that you don't frequently collaborate with. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I don't have those videos, but I think we should totally share those out. And we do typically do that in like August.
And I can try to find them, but
yeah, I think it's typically run in like August because usually our interns get to participate. Our apprentices have been here for a couple months, so they feel comfortable. Lena, you did it, right?
Yeah, I participated in a hackathon where we kind of built a website that uses like internal Pandora, like musical, like algorithms and like databases. And we mapped, like we kind of created emojis, and the user could pick and like press different moods of the emojis. So that was really fun. And then it would kind of get like a personalized playlist based on emojis.
Great. This is the question for the past apprentices. How much prior programming experience or training did you have before applying?
Finished a boot camp about a year and a half before joining Onramp and Pandora. And before that, also I kind of got graduated boot camp right into like the wave of the pandemic as it was started. So I was practicing kind of like algorithms and building projects in the meantime until the right opportunity came up. Before that, before the bootcamp, I was kind of just like, I wasn't very serious about coding. I didn't want to learn coding, and I was kind of like doing it, but I wasn't like totally committed. And that was for about maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I'd spent some years self-learning mostly on the mobile side, so Swift, iOS development, as well as Android development with originally Java some years back, and then of course now Kotlin. So that was about for 5-ish years that I was just learning both of those developments, making my own little side projects, which I did include to show while I was interviewing for Onramp. So it was mostly self-learning for me regarding mobile development. And I think in the application with Onramp, they do have a lot of resources such as links that take you to, in my case, they took you to like Google's some websites to teach you Kotlin and such. So I already knew most of those things, but it was very comprehensive and it's definitely geared toward the position and the role that the application was for. So I think even if you have like just a little bit of knowledge, the resources that they have in the application page for Onramp will definitely help you to learn or be more acquainted with what the role you're applying for would require.
So I can add to that, like if you have a resource and for some reason you don't understand the concept from just that particular resource, don't automatically assume that like this is not for you. Just like make sure you find some alternative and resources, like maybe watch a video or read a book or read an article. And I think it's really important to collect information from all these different sources, and then it will like eventually click for you.
Thanks for saying that, Lena. And I actually sent out additional resources in Java the other day. So if anybody didn't receive those and want them, just write to me at support. So we're pretty much at the end of our time. We just have 2 minutes left. I'm wondering if we can maybe just quickly go down the panel, and if everyone could just give one piece of advice to the participants here who are considering this opportunity. What do you want them to know?
Have confidence in yourself and believe in your abilities. Don't get hung up on maybe I don't know this yet or I'm not quite there. Use the resources Onramp gives you to best prepare yourself. Come in confident, come in with a passion and a willingness to learn.
I can go next. I would just say, same as Allison, don't give up, like believe in yourself. Don't feel just because you can't do something right now, you're never going to be able to do this. Like there is certain stages that you progress through as you learn more and more things, like other things will make sense. So if you don't know something or you don't understand something, don't get upset about it. Just go learn something else and you will eventually get better and better at this.
Yeah, all that advice is definitely useful for anyone coming in for an apprenticeship, since it's of course a learning and doing opportunity and environment. So definitely do not be discouraged. I know like in the past when I was looking for positions and roles, I would go through the list of requirements and I'd be like, oh, I don't have that. So I was like, so I'm not even going to try. So definitely just, and as Devine had pointed out earlier, things are always changing in this industry. Every year or two, something is outdated and you have to learn new things already. So even if you don't know it now, you'll learn it. And then eventually you'll have to learn something new or something different. So it's just constantly learning. So if you don't know it now, you'll learn it and then you'll learn something new, and it's just continuously changing. So definitely don't be afraid about not knowing now.
Yeah, I think like everyone has summarized it pretty well. All I'll say is like, be confident, have a positive attitude, and you'll be successful. And I want to wish everyone good luck.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panelists so much for your time and your great answers today. Thank you to our participants for your wonderful questions. Again, if you have any application specific questions, feel free to send them to me at support@onramp.io. We'll make sure you get an answer. I hope to see all your applications come through for this incredible opportunity. Our apprentices who land at Sirius absolutely love working there. They are some of the most excited people I talk to after they convert. It's an amazing company. It's such a great opportunity. So I hope to see lots of you apply. Thank you again to everyone and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.